My father beat me because I didn't want to give him money, and my mother and sister stood aside and laughed at me. So I'm James, 29 years old, and I teach 4th grade at an elementary school just outside of Milwaukee. It's not glamorous, but I love what I do. My life is pretty simple. Wake up early, teach, grade papers, and lately, spend time with Amber, my girlfriend of almost a year now. She's a nurse and has this calming presence I didn't know I needed. Last month, we took a modest trip to Colorado. Nothing crazy, just a 4-day getaway with hiking, scenic drives, and hot cocoa under string lights at a cabin rental in Estes Park. I came back home feeling pretty refreshed. Now, every year, my dad Frank hosts this summer barbecue for our extended family. It's sort of a big deal. Cousins, uncles, people you only see when someone dies or throws a party. It's usually loud, chaotic, filled with beers, burnt hot dogs, and lawn chairs that collapse if you lean too hard. I've always looked forward to it, even if I never quite feel like I belong. This year, though, I was especially looking forward to it. Figured I'd share some photos from our trip, maybe talk about Amber, and just enjoy being around everyone. We get there, and everything seems normal. My mom hands me a plate. Uncle Rick is already half drunk, yelling about how the Brewers are cursed. I sit down next to my sister, Caitlin, who's too busy texting to really acknowledge me. Then Dad comes over with that smug little grin he gets when he thinks he's being hilarious. He raises his beer and says, "Here's to the family vacation, finally happening next month." People start clapping, hooting, raising their drinks. I blink. What vacation? There's this weird pause, just for a second, and then my dad laughs and slaps my shoulder. "Oh, right, this is for the family without you." Everyone laughs. Like really laughs. Aunt Debbie actually claps. Even my mom chuckles. For a moment, I'm frozen, standing there with a mouthful of potato salad, realizing this isn't a joke. They're serious. There's an actual vacation planned. A real one. And I wasn't invited. So I say, "Wait, what vacation are you talking about?" And no one gives me a straight answer. My cousin Natalie goes, "Oh my God, you didn't know?" And looks over at Caitlin like she's about to spill some juicy drama. Dad just says, "Relax, James, it's not a big deal. It's just something we put together real quick." Some of the family is flying out to Maui for a week. Maui. A freaking week in Maui. Without me. I say, trying not to sound as wounded as I feel. Mom finally pipes up. "Well, we didn't think you'd be able to come, what with school starting and all." Which, okay, maybe if that had been said with sincerity, I could have bought it. But she's smiling like she just told me I missed the last donut. Amber tries to take my hand under the table, but I'm already reeling. The more I ask, the more vague the answers get. It was kind of last minute. "We didn't think you'd want to spend the money. You're always so busy." I felt like I was being gaslit by an entire patio set of relatives. That's when Dad walks back over with a fresh beer, still smiling like it's all hilarious, and says, "Come on, don't pout. Just enjoy the cookout." And for some reason, I just snapped. I stood up, trying to keep my voice even. "You guys planned a whole trip, an entire family vacation, and not one of you thought to even ask me if I could come? You decided for me." My dad rolls his eyes and says, "Oh, for Christ's sake, James, it's not personal." And I say, "Then what is it?" And that's when he slapped me. I didn't even see it coming. 1 second, I'm demanding an explanation, and the next, I feel this hot sting on the side of my face. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to shut me up. Hard enough that everything went dead quiet. Amber gasped. My sister looked like she finally put her phone down. My aunt spilled her wine. Dad just said, "You're being dramatic. Sit down." Like I was some unruly child. Like I hadn't just been humiliated in front of the whole damn family. I didn't sit down. I just walked out. Amber followed me, holding my hand tight the way she always does when she knows I'm seconds away from losing it. I didn't even say goodbye. We got in the car and drove off, and I swear my hands didn't stop shaking until we were halfway back to our apartment. I haven't spoken to my family since. Not one of them has called. Not even my mother. 5 days after that humiliating barbecue, I was still reeling. My cheek wasn't bruised, but it felt like it should have been. The slap hadn't just stung physically, it rearranged something inside me. I kept playing it over and over in my head. The sound, the silence afterward, the way everyone just looked away like it hadn't happened. Amber kept checking on me, asking if I was okay, and I kept lying, saying yeah, I was fine, even though every part of me felt untethered. It was the kind of betrayal that doesn't come with a warning. It just happens, and suddenly you realize you never had the family you thought you did. That Wednesday, I was on my lunch break at school, sipping cold coffee and grading spelling tests when I got the notification. It popped up on my phone. Attempted transaction declined $5,000 at First National Bank. I blinked at it like it was in a foreign language. I hadn't tried to make a withdrawal, and definitely not for $5,000. Then it hit me. About 8 months ago, I'd added my mom as a secondary cardholder on my checking account. Dumb, I know. It was back when she was helping me refinance my car, and I figured giving her access would make it easier for her to co-sign a few documents and monitor the payment schedule. She told me she'd never touch the money. She even laughed and said, "I've got enough of my own problems, believe me." I believed her. Big mistake. I'd completely forgotten the card was still active. But something told me, in that moment, who it was. I opened the app and saw it immediately. She had tried to transfer $5,000 into her own checking account. No note. No call. Nothing. Just an attempted heist at lunchtime. I sat there stunned. This wasn't a mistake. She knew exactly what she was doing. $5,000. That wasn't groceries or gas or anything that could be shrugged off as an accident. That was deliberate. That was planned. The only thing that saved me from watching my balance nosedive was a setting I'd put in place months earlier. Back when Amber and I first started talking seriously about budgeting, she'd helped me set a daily withdrawal limit on all external transfers. For $100 max. We were trying to save for a trip, maybe something bigger down the line, and I didn't want to risk big hits to my account. I never thought it would come into play. But that tiny decision, made on a quiet night with spreadsheets and wine, just saved my ass. I felt my stomach churn as I scrolled through the rest of my account history, making sure nothing else had been siphoned out. Nothing else was missing. But that didn't make me feel any better. The fact that she'd even tried? That wrecked me. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I just opened the account settings and removed her as an authorized user. Then I changed the account nickname to Pay Without Me. It was petty, sure, but it made the point. I wasn't part of the game anymore. No more surprise vacations. No more slaps at family barbecues. And no more reaching into my wallet like I owed them something. Later that evening, I logged into my bank again just to double check. Everything was clean. I deleted the old joint account card from Apple Pay, canceled the physical card she had, set up two-factor authentication on every financial platform I use. I wasn't going to let her try something like that again. I didn't hear from her the rest of the day. No apology. No denial. Just silence. But in that silence, the message was clear. She didn't see me as her son. Not really. I was just another resource. A line of credit. A name on a card. The slap at dinner was personal. The bank attempt was business. And either way, I was done. It happened 3 days after I blocked the account and renamed it Pay Without Me. I hadn't heard a word from anyone in my family since the attempted bank transfer, and frankly, I preferred it that way. Amber and I had been laying low, spending time with her folks while our apartment building dealt with some plumbing maintenance. That afternoon, everything finally cleared, and we headed back home with a couple of grocery bags, planning a quiet night with leftover Thai food and whatever dumb reality show Amber was into that week. We pulled into our parking spot, and nothing seemed off. Amber's parents were behind us in their car. They'd come along to help us unload a few things. I remember joking about how I was going to make the couch my personal fortress for the weekend. Absolutely no adulting allowed. But the moment Amber opened the door, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of conversation. Not the kind you hear from neighbors through the wall. This was in our apartment. Amber froze. I stepped past her, and what I saw made my stomach knot. My parents were sitting at our kitchen table like they lived there. My mother had brought a reusable grocery bag filled with snacks, chips, fruit, bottled water, and what looked like a folder full of documents. My dad was just standing there, arms crossed, like he was waiting for someone to report for duty. And on the couch, without her shoes, legs tucked under her like it was the most natural thing in the world, was my sister Tracy, scrolling through her phone like she belonged. No one looked startled. No one even acted like this was weird. Amber stepped inside behind me, her voice small and brittle. "What are you doing here?" My mother smiled, all cheerful like she'd just dropped by to deliver muffins. "We thought it was a good time to talk. You weren't answering your messages, and we figured you must be overwhelmed. So we thought we'd help you work things through." I couldn't speak. I just stared. I glanced at the deadbolt, realizing they had used the spare key, the one I had stupidly left on the top of the hallway shelf in case of emergencies. Apparently, betrayal counted as an emergency. Tracy looked up, waved a little, then actually had the nerve to say, "Your couch is really comfy. I forgot how nice it is here." Then she went right back to scrolling. Amber's dad stepped in behind us, his eyes scanning the room like he was ready to throw someone out bodily. Her mom didn't even hide her disgust. She just said, "You people didn't even knock?" My father finally spoke. "This doesn't need to be a scene. We're just here to sort out a few misunderstandings. Your mother brought some paperwork. We thought it'd be easier to explain everything in person." I looked at the folder on the table, the edge of a bank statement sticking out. It was all becoming clear. They weren't just here for a visit. They were here to fix what I had broken. Their access, their grip, their sense of control. This wasn't about reconciliation. This was about regaining ground. I felt my hands clench. Not from fear. From disbelief. From rage. They had broken into my home, sat on my furniture, opened my fridge, and acted like it was their right. Like I had overreacted. Like I was the irrational one. Amber walked straight to the kitchen, grabbed the spare key from the top shelf, and dropped it into my hand without a word. Her eyes met mine, and I didn't have to say anything. I turned back to my family and held the key up. Get out. My mother blinked, her smile faltering. James, come on. I didn't let her finish. Out. Right now. All of you. Tracy scoffed, but stood up anyway, groaning like I was the one being difficult. My dad muttered something under his breath. My mom picked up her bag of snacks and the folder of documents and tried one more appeal. We just want to fix things. You broke into my home, I said, not yelling, just stating the facts. This isn't a conversation. This is over. They filed out slowly, like they couldn't quite believe I meant it. My mother turned back one last time at the door, as if waiting for me to soften. I didn't. When the door finally closed behind them, I locked it. Then I turned the deadbolt. Then I pulled the chain across. Amber's mom put a hand on my shoulder, just for a second. Nobody said anything for a while. We just stood there, in the silence they had left behind. They called the next day, of course. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts. Then the missed FaceTime calls. I didn't answer any of them. I didn't want to hear explanations or excuses or their version of how it wasn't that serious. But late that night, my phone lit up again, this time with a message from Tracy. You've changed. Just that. No punctuation. No context. Just a cold little jab wrapped in sibling familiarity. And somehow, that hit harder than anything else. I didn't sleep. I laid there staring at the ceiling while Amber slept beside me, the words rolling around in my head like they meant something bigger. You've changed. As if I had done something wrong by finally standing up for myself. As if choosing boundaries was some moral failure. The next morning, I checked my phone again. More messages, all with the same theme. My mom, you're being cold, James. This isn't you. My dad, act like an adult and talk to your family. Tracy again. Seriously, what happened to you? I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not because I didn't have words, but because every one of theirs made something boil in my chest I couldn't control. I went about the day like normal. Made coffee. Taught class. Graded quizzes during lunch. But by the time I got home, my hands were shaking again. Amber was waiting in the kitchen, prepping dinner. She looked up when I walked in and said, they came back. I blinked. What? She nodded toward the living room. Your mom and Tracy. They knocked. I told them it wasn't a good time, and they left. But they said they'd be back with your dad later. I sat down at the table, not even taking my coat off. My heart was pounding, and I felt this helpless mix of rage and exhaustion curling around my ribs. Why are they doing this? Amber put the knife down, leaned across the counter, and said gently, because they don't think you'll stop them. 2 hours later, they did come back. My parents and Tracy again. This time, they didn't wait to be invited in. They buzzed the downstairs intercom, and before I could even decide whether to answer, someone let them in. I opened the apartment door, and there they were, standing in the hallway like they owned it. My mom went right in. No hesitation. She walked to the kitchen, dropped her bag on the counter, and started unloading papers like we were about to sign a contract. Tracy leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her expression smug. My dad didn't say anything at first. He just gave me that look he always used to give when I was 12 and being difficult. I stood there frozen. Amber came up beside me, but before I could say a word, my mother let out a deep sigh and said it. You've changed. I blinked. Excuse me. You used to be so warm, she continued. You used to care about your family. Now you're shutting everyone out, acting like we're strangers. I didn't even try to keep my voice calm. You came into my home without permission. You tried to take money from me. You slapped me in front of everyone. My dad chimed in then, his voice sharp. Don't be dramatic, James. No one's trying to hurt you. We're trying to talk. But instead of listening, you're acting like you live in a fortress. Tracy rolled her eyes. God, you're so sensitive lately. I felt something crack inside me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. Then I managed. This is my house. You don't just walk in like this. You don't get to just show up and pretend it's normal. My mother straightened, her voice suddenly indignant. We're family. It's not like we're strangers. Why are you making this such a big deal? It's not wrong for a mother to come into her son's home. Before I could respond, Amber stepped forward. Her voice was low, even, but it cut through everything like a knife. This is not normal, James. She didn't say it to me. She said it to them. But she was looking straight at me when she said it. None of this is normal. Not breaking in. Not slapping someone and pretending it's a joke. Not draining their bank account and saying it's about love. This is control. And you're not crazy for being upset. The room went quiet. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. My dad's arms dropped to his sides. Tracy looked away. I felt every muscle in my body go tight, then finally collapse. I sat down on the armrest of the couch and covered my face with both hands. My shoulders were shaking. I didn't even know what I was doing. Crying, laughing, screaming silently. All of it. None of it. The years of pretending, of swallowing it all, of telling myself they meant well, even when they didn't. It all came out at once, like a pressure valve blowing wide open. Amber didn't touch me. She just stood by me. Quiet, steady, solid. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to make me forget why I was angry in the first place. I waited 2 more days before doing something I probably should have done years ago. I was sitting at the edge of our bed, staring at a photo I hadn't looked at in a long time. It was from a family reunion, one of the last ones where Aunt Denise had shown up. She was on the far left, wearing a straw hat, holding a can of soda, and laughing at something I couldn't remember. I had been maybe 16. That was the last time I saw her in person. Back then, I just knew she wasn't coming around anymore. My parents said she was difficult, moody, that she didn't want anything to do with family, and had some kind of breakdown. They never said much more, and I never thought to question it. Until now. I found her number buried in my old contacts, saved under Aunt D from when I used to send her birthday messages. I hesitated for a second, thumb hovering over the call button, then tapped it before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the second ring. Hello. I hadn't heard her voice in over a decade, but it came rushing back, warm, a little hoarse like someone who laughed often but smoked too much. I cleared my throat and said, Hi, it's James. James McAllister. Frank and Linda's son. There was a pause. Then her voice softened. James, wow. I didn't expect to ever hear from you. I know, I said, and suddenly my mouth felt dry. I was wondering if we could meet. I have questions, and I think you're probably the only person who might be willing to tell me the truth. She didn't hesitate. Yes, come by the cafe on 1st and Brighton tomorrow, 11 a.m. The next morning I got there early and sat at a corner table, nursing a coffee I didn't want and watching the door. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She'd let her hair go gray and wore a heavy cardigan even though it was warm out. But her eyes were sharp, scanning the room until they landed on me. She sat down slowly, took off her glasses, and said, You look tired. I gave a weak smile. I feel tired. She nodded, then got right to it. What did they do? I told her everything. The barbecue, the slap, the bank transfer, the break-in, the accusations, the guilt tripping, the way they spun it back on me, like I was the one who had changed. She didn't interrupt once. Just listened, nodding slowly, her hands wrapped around her mug. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said, They did the same thing to me. I just stared at her. What? Your parents, she said calmly. They've been manipulating people their whole lives. Me, mostly. I was their target for years. After our dad passed, I got a small inheritance. Not life-changing, but enough. They convinced me to invest in your father's projects. Said it was about helping the family. First it was a real estate thing. Then your mom said she needed help with medical bills, though I later found out there were none. I blinked. You gave them money? She laughed bitterly. More than I want to admit. I didn't realize how bad it was until I asked to be repaid. Your father got angry. Your mother started crying. I was the villain. That was the script. And when I finally said I was done, they told everyone I was mentally unstable, that I had burned bridges. I sat there stunned. So they just moved on to me. She looked at me with something like sympathy. You were always the quiet one, the steady one. They figured you'd never push back. I didn't know what to say. The weight of it all, years of stories, all the little comments, the guilt trips, the way they never took no for an answer. It all made sense now. The model wasn't new. It was recycled. She leaned forward, her voice gentle now. James, it's not your fault. They know how to twist love into obligation. That's what they've always done. You're just the latest one who finally woke up. I nodded slowly, staring down at my hands. She reached across the table, laid her hand on mine. You're not crazy. And you're not wrong for walking away. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to clarity. We met again 2 days after the cafe. Denise brought a folder with her this time, the kind of sturdy faux leather thing that looked like it had been pulled from a lawyer's shelf. Inside were lists, contact numbers, document templates. She was calm and methodical, like she'd been waiting years for someone else in the family to say enough. We sat at her kitchen table, sipping cheap coffee, and got to work. The first thing we did was close every joint financial thread that tied me to my parents. The old account they'd once had access to was already locked, but I went a step further, closed it entirely, and opened a new one at a different bank, one where I knew no previous information had ever been shared. New routing number, new debit card, new passwords. I even changed the security questions to things no one in the family would know. Denise insisted we double-check the fine print. just in case there were any remaining permissions I might have forgotten about. We combed through every line like we were hunting landmines. Next, we updated every emergency contact I had. Work, insurance, healthcare providers. Every form I had ever filled out with my mother's name on it got changed. I replaced her with Amber in most places and Denise in others. We called customer service lines one by one, sitting on hold with that endless loop of instrumental music until each record was fixed. After that, I tackled my online life. Passwords, two-factor authentication, email recovery options. I changed it all. I even removed their access to my cloud account, which I'd once used to back up holiday photos and family videos. They weren't going to have a digital key to anything anymore. When it was done, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Not peace exactly, but a kind of steady, controlled satisfaction. Like I had just finished clearing out a house that had long since stopped being a home. I didn't say anything to them for another week. I wanted it to be final, complete, quiet. And when it was, I logged into my new banking app, took a screenshot of my balance, not to brag, not to gloat, but to send a message that I was in control now, and opened the old family group chat. The one where they used to send birthday plans, last-minute errands, and passive-aggressive reminders that I was the dependable one. I attached the screenshot and typed a single sentence. Closed. Just like our relationship. Then I hit send. I stared at the screen for a moment after. No one replied. I watched the little read indicators appear one by one. First Tracy, then my dad, then my mom. The chat stayed silent. I exited the app and turned my phone off. That was the last message I ever intended to send them. The photo had been sitting in my phone for over a week. Denise had sent it to me late one night. No context, just the image. My mother lounging by a pool with a drink in her hand, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses, while my dad stood a few feet away in a resort polo shirt and khaki shorts, mid-conversation with someone I didn't recognize. The background said everything. White cabanas, crystal clear water, branded towels with the name of the resort embroidered on them in gold thread. A quick reverse image search confirmed the location. It was the same resort in Maui they had flown out to days before Thanksgiving. The same trip I had never been invited on. What made the timing unbearable was that just a day after that photo had been taken, literally 24 hours later, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice sounded tight, rehearsed, like someone trying to hold a performance together with threadbare lines. She said they were going through a rough patch, that things had gotten unexpectedly tight, and asked if I could cover a couple of bills just for now. Rent, she said, was a few weeks late. She even suggested I send the money directly to their landlord so I'd feel better knowing it went where it was supposed to. I never responded. I saved the voicemail and stared at it in my inbox for days, trying to decide whether silence was enough. But the photo changed everything. I wasn't going to send the image to anyone privately. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want their explanations or denials. What I wanted was truth, just once, for their carefully curated version of reality to fracture in public the way they had fractured things behind closed doors. So I opened Facebook. I hadn't posted anything personal in months. My feed had become a blur of former students' birthdays, coworker announcements, and people I barely remembered sharing vacation highlights from places I could no longer associate with joy. I uploaded the photo. I didn't tag anyone. No names. No hashtags. Just a single sentence for the caption. Sometimes those who accuse you of being selfish are just angry that you no longer finance their lifestyle. Then I hit post. It was like throwing a lit match into a room soaked in gasoline. Within an hour, I started seeing likes, quiet comments, and messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old friends, cousins, a former neighbor who used to babysit me. People who had only ever seen my parents as the generous, well-put-together couple who threw perfect barbecues and showed up with expensive wine. People who now saw something else. Not because I told them, because they could see it for themselves. I didn't check who among my family had seen it. I didn't care. The post wasn't for them. It was for me. A quiet reckoning. A piece of the truth made visible. And after years of being the one who kept everything private, tidy, and easy for them, I was finally done helping them keep up appearances. It was raining when they showed up. I remember that because the knock came right as I was standing by the window, watching the drops streak down the glass. Amber was working a double, and the apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge and the occasional rattle of wind against the screen door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I definitely wasn't expecting them. I opened the door to find my mother standing there, umbrella in one hand, purse clutched tightly in the other. Next to her was Uncle Richard, my father's brother, someone I hadn't seen in years. He was always the peacemaker of the family, or so he liked to call himself. He gave me a forced smile, like we were two business partners meeting for the first time after a long legal dispute. "We'd like to talk," my mother said, voice low and soft, like she thought tone alone would get her through the threshold. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. She added, "It's just a conversation, James. We're here to settle everything." I let them in. I shouldn't have, but I did. I sat across from them, arms folded, my back rigid against the edge of the chair, while they got comfortable on the couch like nothing had happened. My mother started with a long sigh, then launched into it. "We've all made mistakes," she said. "But we've been thinking, maybe it's time we all put the past behind us. Start over. Clean slate." Uncle Richard nodded along, his hands clasped together like he was about to deliver a TED talk on forgiveness. "Your mother means well," he said. "She always has. And I think, after all the tension, the best thing we can do is take a trip. Just family. A retreat. Neutral ground. Reconnect." I stared at them. Not because I was confused, but because it was unbelievable how they could stand there and pretend like the last few months hadn't happened. As if the slap never happened. As if they hadn't tried to drain my bank account or broken into my home. As if the manipulation hadn't been exposed in front of half the extended family. "No," I said. "There is no clean slate. And there is no trip." My mother's smile faltered. "James, we're trying to." I cut her off. "If you come to my home uninvited again, I will go to the police." The room went very still. Uncle Richard's mouth opened like he was going to say something, then shut again. My mother blinked hard, like the idea that I would actually draw a legal boundary had never occurred to her. "I mean it," I continued. "Next time you show up at my door without my permission, I won't answer. I'll file a report. You don't get to treat me like an ATM and then try to wrap it in forgiveness." They didn't argue. They stood, quietly this time. My mother lingered a moment longer, looking like she wanted to say something more, but Richard gently pulled her toward the door. They left without slamming it, without pleading, without making a scene. But it wasn't over. Even as I locked the door behind them, I knew this wasn't the last attempt. People like them don't like to lose. And they definitely don't walk away without trying one more time. 2 days after their last visit, I got the letter. It was in a plain white envelope, the kind the district uses when they send out performance evaluations or field trip forms that need signing. I opened it at my desk after the kids had gone to lunch, already halfway through a peanut butter sandwich and thinking about nothing in particular. The letterhead hit me first, bold black text from the school board's office, and then the words, "This letter is to inform you that a formal complaint has been filed regarding your conduct and mental fitness as an educator." I read it twice, not because I didn't understand, but because I couldn't believe it. The complaint had come in anonymously through the board's online portal. It accused me of creating a hostile and toxic classroom environment, claimed I had visible emotional outbursts, and suggested I posed a potential danger to impressionable students. The wording was vague but loaded, exactly the kind of language meant to spook administrators into overreacting. I sat there for a long time, staring at the paper while my lunch sat forgotten. There was no name attached to the complaint, but I didn't need one. I knew where it came from. Maybe not the exact sender, but the intent was unmistakable. It was a hit, a calculated strike meant to pull the ground out from under me. And it was the only card they had left. That evening, I took the letter to Denise. She didn't flinch. She poured me a coffee, read it twice, and then pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my lawyer," she said. "This isn't just malicious. It's stupid." Her attorney was a quiet man with square glasses and a notebook that he never stopped writing in. He had helped Denise during her financial fallout with the family years ago, and she trusted him implicitly. After reading the letter, he made a few calls, filed a request with the district's IT department through Denise's contacts on the school board, and within 48 hours, we had an answer. The complaint had been filed from a public IP address, specifically one traced to a university campus library in another state. Not just any university. My sister Tracy's college. That was all the district needed. They had a copy of my performance reviews, parent feedback, and recent observations. Nothing in my file supported the complaint. No disciplinary actions. No classroom incidents. My principal, who had always been supportive, called me in after the case was closed and said plainly, "Someone wanted to hurt you, but they failed." I thanked him, shook his hand, and walked out of that meeting feeling less relief and more confirmation. They weren't just trying to get back in. They were trying to erase me from my own life, one door at a time. And when I didn't cave at home, they tried to take my work. It didn't work. But now I knew. This wasn't a Cold War anymore. They had gone on the offensive. The apartment is smaller than our last one, but it feels bigger. There's no draft under the door, no deadbolt scarred by memory, and no lingering sense that someone might walk in without permission. The walls are a soft eggshell color, and the light in the kitchen hits just right in the morning. Amber picked out the curtains, light linen, barely there, and I chose the rug, dark blue with a subtle pattern that makes the whole place feel grounded. We moved in just over 3 months ago, and I haven't looked back once. I sleep now, deeply, without waking up at 2 a.m. to check locks or reread old messages wondering what I could have said differently. I set up a study corner by the window with my desk and a few photos my students have drawn for me. Stick figures with glasses and ties, little speech bubbles that say things like, Mr. M is the best, and we love math now. One kid even drew a picture of me holding a lightsaber with a speech bubble that said, knowledge is the force. I laminated that one. Amber and I settled into a rhythm. Sunday mornings are slow coffee and grocery lists. Weeknights are spent cooking together, or reading, or just sitting on the floor listening to music. Her parents still check in, always kind, always giving space. Denise stops by sometimes too, usually with a bottle of something good, and that dry wit that makes her feel like the kind of family you choose, not the kind you survive. School has been its own quiet redemption. Word got around, not everything, but enough. A few fellow teachers pulled me aside and said they were proud of me. Parents thanked me for being there, for not disappearing even when things got heavy. One student wrote on her evaluation, Mr. McAllister is calm and smart, and he listens when you talk. I feel safe here. That one I read twice, then folded carefully into a drawer. A few weeks ago, we got patio furniture for the balcony. Just 2 chairs and a little round table, nothing fancy. Tonight we opened a bottle of red, poured 2 glasses, and watched the streetlights blink on. It had just rained, and the pavement below shimmered like it was still wet. Amber was quiet for a long time, then turned to me and said, You're going to be a great father. She didn't say it like a dream or a question. She said it like a truth, like something that had already been decided. I didn't respond right away. I just let the words sink in, felt them settle in a part of me that used to be filled with doubt. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I felt completely free. So, Reddit, what would you have done in my place? Would you have drawn the line sooner? Stayed silent? Pushed back harder? Or walked away the same way I did? I'm listening.